one of the countless billions of galaxies in the universe lies a medium-sized star, and one of its satellites, a green and insignificant planet, is now dead.
What I was gonna say is, are we gonna do the we're in a weird situation?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what I was gonna ask.
Well, because we went to visit the Vietcong to celebrate. Like, it's been what, 50 years since the victory over there, and
more or less.
Apparently, we thought everything was peaceful. Now, still a pretty violent territory, and we're hiding out in a foxhole right now.
Weirdly, by pure coincidence, Evan Rada, who has been on the podcast before, what the fuck are you doing here?
I was going to go and visit some Buddhist monasteries.
In the Vietcong?
Yeah. Turns out that I should have done some more research on my part. Maybe Googled some things, because it's just, torn in half, bodies strewn everywhere.
Well, we figured we're in a bit of a tight spot. We're hiding out. Could die. Evan happened to be here. We do have a commitment to get this podcast out.
So we've
week.
taken some time. We're going to record an episode for you guys right now.
So, welcome to Verse the World. I'm Matt.
And I'm Danny. I'm a little sick this week. My voice is kind of gone, so Matt's gonna kind of carry the show this week.
If I can, it's tougher than it looks already. I'll tell
isn't
you.
it?
Yeah, it's
Those
the
openings
pressure.
are tough.
It's the pressure's on. We have as our guest, as previously mentioned, Evan Rada. He was on once before, technically twice before, but we lost an episode. But he was on our Dream episode, which may be getting a sequel soon. People like the Dream episode a lot. We have some interesting things to add.
Nick definitely did.
Nick did, if you saw the Fan vs. the World episode. And our audio engineer, Eric, is telling us some wacky stuff about his dreams.
Wacky stuff.
So,
yeah, which, by the way, if we sound better, I sound worse, but if we sound better, we're testing out a bunch of new equipment this week. So we're in a whole new setup. It's pretty cool. Well, I mean, we're in a whole new setup because we're in Vietnam, but luckily Eric was able to bring some brand new equipment out with us.
yeah, he happened to bring some equipment just in case. He always, he's traveling with us.
Wait a minute. Sorry, hold on. I just rewatched Kong Skull Island the other night. Bored out of my mind. That movie's not that good. I don't know why I bought it on Blu-ray. But I just realized the Vietcong. Somebody was sitting there in a boardroom at some point, and someone said Vietcong. And they were like, "Don't you mean Vietnam?" And they were like, "Yeah, but that's what it's called, the Vietcong." And he's like, "What if we put King Kong in Vietnam?"
Oh.
And that's how we ended up with that fucking
Wait,
movie.
is that movie takes place in Vietnam?
It doesn't take place in Vietnam, the country, but it takes
like a
place
parody
during
of
the
it?
Vietnam conflict.
Right.
And it has a real
okay.
platoon feel and everything. Like they play an Unfortunate Son over speakers in the helicopters as they're flying in and stuff.
So
It's really
now kind of
yeah. When Kong, the one really great shot in the movie that was in the trailers that got me to go see it, and then the movie is just super dumb. But there's really great shots like Kong rising up this giant ape. There's all these helicopters, and there's just a big Apocalypse Now style sunset behind him.
Yeah,
And it looks
it's a cool
awesome.
scene. Yeah, I hadn't seen it, but anyway.
Yeah, sorry to detract. I just made that connection.
Yeah, well, that is pretty dumb. So it'll fit right in with the podcast. Today on Verse the World, we've been trying to figure out different topics that might be interesting. And one thing that I just keep seeing popping up in different areas, because it's such a kind of a big topic, but it also seems like maybe it doesn't get enough attention, is kind of the relationship between social media and how it's affecting us, just everyone, but especially teens is kind of what we'll talk about today. But it is, well, before we get into that, you have got anything to talk about? Anything interesting, Caleb, going on in the news or?
Well, actually, I should say I just graduated from college yesterday. I just got my bachelor's degree in communications.
And flew straight to the
Vietcong. Yeah.
Wow.
This was actually supposed to be your celebration trip. And boy howdy how it's turned out. yeah, so that's really cool. So I'm really excited. I didn't know if I was going to make it through. But the topic I wanted to bring up today, unfortunately, I haven't done enough research on it, but we've talked a little bit about censorship and deplatforming on the show a couple times. And I thought it would be good to just mention that another wave of like major deplatforming has happened. And Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos, two other prominent figures, I can't remember their names off the top of my head, were all removed from Facebook, like flat out. And Facebook kind of published this big thing where they're like, we're not going to allow these far-right leaders to have a voice on our platform. None of them had really done anything specific that the article pointed to of why they were being taken off. It really does seem like the closer we get to the 2020 election, the more all these social media companies are clamping down on political views that they really don't agree with.
Yeah.
And it's a little terrifying. And then YouTube is really clenching harder and harder on all kinds of what they deem as far right topics. There's certain words, like I was watching a few of Tim Pool's videos recently. He has to be very careful when hitting news topics. If the news topics include certain words like Muslim or bombing or different things like that, it can immediately get demonetized just because he says that in the news report. And it's getting more and more ridiculous on this side of that divide. And like I said, I think as we get closer to the election, it's going to get extreme.
Yeah, I saw something that I thought was interesting about not all of the people that were banned off of Facebook, but at least some of them. If you even mention them or are associated with them on Facebook, like if I was trying to like tag Alex Jones or something in a Facebook thing, then my post can just be like completely unwritten, like just go away. Like and like that's pretty crazy. You can't talk about. I mean, I hate to get to that point. I definitely, people compare this kind of stuff to like Nazi Germany and stuff. I think sometimes that ends up exaggerating things, but there's a certain part of it where it's like, okay, this person, I don't agree with Alex Jones a lot of the time. I definitely don't agree with Milo Yiannopoulos. I don't like his approach to free speech, but I can't even have the conversation about how I don't agree with them, like without causing some problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like what you saw a lot in different countries in the 20th century, where it's like, first there's accepted political views that everybody shares, and then there's political views that are just not allowed. You don't speak about them, you don't talk about them. And the problem with that is just the fact that limiting the amount of things that you can talk about, the amount of ideas that you can discuss, means that you start moving towards an orthodoxy, like an accepted dogma, and that would be an absolutely terrible thing to happen right now.
Yeah, man, and the YouTube stuff, I think that's really crazy. The certain keywords making videos get demonetized, or even, I mean, at the extreme, you have some videos where they're demonetized and you can't find them. Like if you're trying to, they will not pop up in searches. They won't be recommended. You would have to specifically go to the person's page and find the video. And
sometimes you can't even find their page. A couple of people have been weirdly like shadow banned in ways where you can't even find the channel unless you already had a direct link to it.
And I don't think they realize how this stuff actually hurts both sides of the conversation, because I mean, it's been a problem for a long time now. Like, I mean, for a while now, but I've heard it from different YouTubers like Boogie2988, who's just this gamer guy. He did like the Francis videos. He's basically a really overweight guy talking about Mountain Dew and stuff. He's actually lost a lot of weight recently. But the point is, he's like he's like as neutral as you can get on YouTube. Like he just talks about gaming stuff. He just streams, but he does talk about his personal life, and he's been suicidal and depressed. If he tags or in his video suicide, or mentions suicide or anything close to it, then his video gets demonetized. I'm like, you're having a guy who's trying to share a story about depression and suicide that could probably help other people, and you're basically giving him flack for it. And same thing with like news channels like Philip DeFranco talks all the time. He has to be careful when he's covering news events about Muslims or bombings or shooters or any of this stuff. His videos get demonetized. It's like, and I understand why a lot of these guys go on to Patreon and sites like that. It's like, I mean, I understand to an extent where you might want to demonetize certain videos. If I had it my way, I think you shouldn't demonetize videos. But it is scary when it's like, what if you're talking about, you're just objectively trying to tell the news about some event, you know, and now you mention, you know, or talking about suicide, or maybe you want to talk about suicide prevention. I mean, that's pretty crazy to demonetize someone for wanting to talk about suicide prevention.
Yeah. Well, and it's making like the people who can become popular on YouTube in the future more and more homogenous, where, I mean, you can kind of see it in the YouTube rewinds in the last 2 years. They're really trying to push a very particular type of person, and it's someone that doesn't actually have that much appeal.
Very Disney XD.
Yeah, and it I don't know. It's really it's annoying to me because YouTube used to be the place where you create something yourself and you put it out there and you see what people think, and that's what was fun about it.
And the people decide.
Yeah,
it was
they
very
decide
creator
whether they like it or not,
and viewer, and that was the whole relationship.
Yeah,
and it was kind of like the viewership decides, you know, whether you're hated or liked. And now it's like YouTube's like, I mean, the trending page is atrocious, man.
Yeah,
it's awful. You have these videos. You have people like iDubbbz when he did the Rice Gum. What are those videos called? Content Cop, and it got like 20 million views in like a day or two, and he wasn't on trending.
Yeah.
And then you see, I mean, it's so obvious. They try to say that it's not, but it's so obvious that advertisers are paying YouTube, because half the time it's advertisements and trailers for movies and stuff.
Right. Well, and that's the thing with these new shifts that they've made in the algorithm most recently. They've lost 70 billion, I want to say, worth of advertising capital. Like a bunch of advertisers are pulling out now. I don't have the exact
it's
information.
depressing.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It is that it's actually hurting YouTube now, and they're still sticking with it.
Man.
And the community, like in the YouTube Rewind last year, there was this big thing. It got turned into a big meme where some newer YouTube star was like, "I'm so proud of this community." And YouTube keeps trying to become more community oriented with their like Twitter account and things like that, where they try to directly connect with the audience, and the audience is always telling them what they dislike about YouTube and how much they hate the agenda that YouTube's pushing, and YouTube just keeps going with it.
And I mean, we did see after the Rewind, for instance, the CEO of YouTube was actually like, yeah, we've actually seen all your complaints and we understand. It's like, but
she's just doing PR.
I'm starting to see
jumbo.
that's just the new PR plan. It used to be just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
Ignore it all the time. But I'm starting to wonder if it's like, now it's like, okay, they are like if they're catching on to actually listening to feedback. This is in all different things, right? With like James Gunn, Disney, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's good. Disney reinstated James Gunn. They're gonna redesign Sonic. Like, you know, Battlefront, the next EA, the next Star Wars game is going to be no microtransactions. Like,
we'll see.
But it makes me start going like, is this the new PR thing where they did catch on? They're like, okay, we need to do it, but they did it the completely wrong way.
Now
where
we
they're just pretending.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Jack Dorsey going like Joe Rogan, like I'm an open book, and then it's like, but is that just the new PR thing?
Yeah, because that was such a brutal, like him and when they did that. Well, we shouldn't get sidetracked,
yeah.
but that whole discussion with Jack Dorsey, Tim Pool, and the lady from the
Twitter.
Yeah, that was an atrocious. Like you'd watch it, there was just so much double speak. There was so much like going back.
So
on
is
what they
that
were
is that
saying,
going to
double standards? But they're saying, "Oh, we're being upfront, we're being open with you," and it's like clearly you're not, because you're dodging questions when we ask about people who aren't getting banned.
And I wonder if this is like the. I mean, think about how Trump does things where. Maybe I'm drawing this way too far out, but like. I think about like you look at Trump and like maybe, you know, Trump will just straight up just lie or say things and then just do what he's going to do anyway. It's like maybe people it's like we're getting this transformation of the way that these businesses or companies communicate with the people, but in the absolute wrong way. Because I at first I was like, this is all good things, and now I'm like, well, is this all just like, is Disney like are they doing this because they know they can get brownie points without actually having to change much?
Yeah,
right?
Well, I'm still disgusted. Well, okay, I'm glad James Gunn is back, but I'm still disgusted by the behavior on the outset with Disney of firing him. But then there are other companies that are doing they're genuinely connecting with their audience. They're being upfront with them. Elon Musk, like both Tesla and SpaceX, like even when they have stumbles and problems with like getting things out on time or something, like the space capsule blew up recently and like they didn't immediately explain what happened. They're researching and investigating what went on before they tell the public.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is always like open and upfront about like what's going on behind the scenes, and he's not doing it to drum up PR. Like he just does communicate with the audience.
Nintendo,
like with the whole Metroid Prime thing, that was like a huge move on Nintendo's part, and like you could see how like terrified they were of it. Like some of these companies do get it, and I really like. I've talked to a lot of people in different business and PR positions, and it really seems you can bypass all the PR maneuvering if you develop a real genuine connection with your audience.
It. Yeah. So I think what we'll see is both probably. We'll start seeing people go like, oh, like this actually seems to work, being genuine, connect with the audience, listening to feedback. And then we'll see some YouTube stuff where it's like, we've saw the reaction to Rewind and we understand the directions. Like, has anything changed in the several months since that happened? Like, it seems like even worse, doubling down on that sort of thing. But
so that's my topic. It's something we'll probably end up talking about it again a lot more as things develop.
It's just a continually evolving thing. Well, I say we hop right into the main discussion.
Yeah.
We really need to figure out every single time. I don't know if you noticed this. Every single time we do Verse the World, we always tell the guests like, yeah, you can jump in and join the conversation, and they never do till we get to the main topic, even if you tell them. Yeah. Not that they feel like they need. I'm not saying they should or they need to. Sorry for talking about you in the third person, Evan. But I'm always like, man, I hope they don't feel like they have to be quiet while we talk about the opening subject.
Well, we have had a couple people get involved. I think when the topic connects with them.
That might be.
But I mean,
we are kind of throwing random stuff out there.
Have we, Evan? Did we have Evan introduce himself on the Dream episode? It's been a while.
Well, yeah, we could do it either. It's been a long time. We have a lot of new people listening now too.
Yeah, we lost the political episode. So, Evan, give us a quick introduction to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Evan Rada. I am a life coach, full time. I am also I guess you could call me the dream expert after the last show I did. But
all right, now it's going to his head now that we complimented the episode.
I was going to say my expertise is mostly things of the mind, psychology, personal improvement. And I've known these two guys for over 10 years, so
it's been a long time.
There's always an interesting, fulfilling conversation on and off the air.
I like that he said fulfilling. That was sweet.
Yeah, that was nice.
Not always family friendly though.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
Usually we have the guest bring the topic or be interested in the topic. Evan just happened to be around.
Yeah, actually, I guess we should say we had this idea every 2 or 3 episodes because we let the guest bring the topic. There's a couple things that we feel are pretty important and keep coming back up in conversation on the show. And so we think every 2 or 3 episodes, we're just going to do one with me and Matt where one of us presents a report on an important topic.
Yeah.
So Matt's presenting.
So to jump into that,
and then we just let Evan join in.
Yeah. Well, over the 10 years, we have a pretty good 3-way dynamic here that works pretty well. Don't say it. No one needs to make a joke about that.
We could do a show where we actually tell that story, but
now you make it. Okay. Well, so I wanted to talk about.
I'll just say that if it wasn't Eiffel Tower, me and Evan were the ones to high five.
Yeah. So Evan turns away from the mic to not laugh into it, and we're on video.
Sorry. No, I just feel like that's a topic for another podcast. There's a lot of innuendos coming your way.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's get into this. So I kind of specifically brought up to Caleb, and I know it's something that you've probably thought about a little bit too, is the effect of social media on people generally, because it is a technological advancement that we've kind of only for the last decade looked at the positives of. I mean, it's been like this cool life-changing thing, Facebook and just the internet generally, and the way we connect with each other. It's always a positive thing, I think. And then even right now, when we are discussing social media like Twitter and stuff, we're usually discussing it on a political front. And I do think the psychology gets ignored a little bit because what first kind of tuned me into this was on Joe Rogan, Jonathan Haidt was on, and he has a book we have right here.
Yeah, Coddling of the American Mind. It's a book I own that I read through. He co-authored it with Greg Lukianoff.
Yeah. And the book is mostly just talking about like college-age kids and the whole idea of that. We've talked about this many times before, the PC stuff at colleges. But I guess I haven't read the book, so I don't know if he gets too into it in the book. I know the book talks about mental health, and I think that's probably where it leads into it. But on this podcast with Rogan, he started just bringing up these graphs and talking about, basically it just seems like there's a direct correlation from around the time Facebook and Twitter started becoming used by everyone and everyone had a smartphone, which wasn't that long ago, really. It was probably like around 2012 or something. It seems to be around the time.
Most of the data sets market at 2011 is when the big boom took off, because by that point smartphones had become widely accessible.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because when I got a smartphone, probably would have been around that time. Maybe
I don't
after.
know when I got a smartphone, but I did. Yeah, I was in the generation that he talks about, that when Facebook suddenly opened up to the public and lowered its age range, and then people started lying about their age. I had a Facebook when in 2010 or 11, so right about there.
It depends on, I don't know, because I know for a fact mine was 2009, and I want to say you probably started yours around about the same time.
Okay,
but yeah, so he was talking about it, and it kind of blew my mind and freaked me out a little bit, because I'm a very empirical guy, and when he's showing, I love a good graph. And
you'll love this book. It's full of, all those graphs are from this book.
Okay, yeah, and I have them, and for the video portion of the podcast, hopefully this might be the first video podcast we have on YouTube. And I'll put them in. We can put them in the description too for audio listeners. But we'll put the actual graphs up so you can see. But basically, when he was pulling this stuff out, it just, I guess it was something I'd never actually considered. It's like, how is this technology affecting us negatively? Because it consumes our life. And the other thing was, I was thinking about Elon Musk when he was talking about how people talk about, oh, in the future we'll be cyborgs. It's like, we kind of are. Like, your phone is in your hand or your pocket all the time, and it's an extension of yourself to an extent, where you can access like anything instantly from your fingertips. Yeah. So we don't think about it like that because it's a device that we're using, but it's like, it's become such it's been so integrated into our lives that it's like, how did I never really stop and think, okay, what are the real ramifications? And I guess that probably came from the fact that I've always been one of those guys that's like, oh yeah, color TV, it's going to rot your brain. Like video games, like I'm always just like, yeah, they always say that in the new technology, but I'm like, I don't know. I do think this might be different.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of data to back up the hypothesis, at least, because the difference between this and maybe the advent of like film or color TV or those things, which do affect our attention span to an extent, it's like video games. Sometimes people will talk about the fact that video games more and more are developed to be psychologically driven, so that you'll commit as much time as possible. They measure out like the reward mechanics in your brain, like how long do you have to work at something before you're rewarded to keep you locked in, and then how long do you have to work the next time before you're rewarded, so that they keep that cycle going, like gambling in a casino.
Yeah.
And games are becoming more and more like that, and it actually affects the chemistry of your brain by constantly giving you a reward kick for putting in very little work. And social media does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
On a crazy fast scale, where you get to the point where you feel like you need a positivity, like a dopamine kick every couple minutes, every couple hours. Like, did I get any more likes? Did I?
Yeah.
All these things. And it's all designed to do that. Whereas like these older technologies like film or something, it's like, sure, it takes you from reading a book for 20 hours or 10 hours or 4 hours or whatever down to watching an hour to 2 hour movie. So maybe you could say that it's affecting people's attention span, but it's not actually psychologically designed to drive you, whereas these technologies are.
Yeah, it's I guess the thing that's frightening about it is we from what Height was saying, basically so we're millennials, I think. You might be 95.
Yeah, I'm 95, so
technically Gen Z, but you're pretty much part of this generation. But Gen Z is basically 95 and younger, and it's like you just see these stark, like, I mean, and like I said, we'll show the graphs of basically depression just running rampant. And I've already noticed it just with like our generation, everyone I know. I mean, it's become like a meme, almost, the joke that everyone's depressed.
Yeah.
And I just kind of thought that was normal, but it just seems so clear that there's a correlation between the social media. And I wonder, I guess, and then girls, it affects girls way more, like a massive difference, which I guess comes from Instagram, Facebook, I mean, it's that feminist thing of like, you got to be careful how it sounds here because you don't want to come off sounding like one of those people that's like, there's an unrealistic body standards and beauty standards. Like, I'm not even talking about whatever that beauty standard is, but you do have girls who are like now forced to put themselves in situations on social media. I mean, think about this. You have girls who are going to be photoshopping or using, I mean, you don't need to Photoshop now. You can use filters on Instagram and Snapchat, like the puppy dog filter and stuff. It's like
a thought filter.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. But those girls, but this is the thing though. I used to be like, I'm like, I'd see those type of girls who heavily edit photos and stuff and just be like, gosh, like that's like, think badly of them. Now I feel bad for them because I'm like, you have these, even a average looking girl is not just going to post a pretty picture of herself online. It's like, it's got to be doctored now basically in order to fit in with the rest of the people posting online. And I guess before that wouldn't be a big deal. You want to post, yeah, of course. I mean, that's always the joke when dating sites and stuff came out, is you want to put like your best picture of you online. And Facebook, you put a good picture for your profile, but then you go back to real life and that's your interaction. Now it's like, how much of these teens how much of interaction is purely online now with teens? Like, I think the three of us probably missed the cutoff because I know the way we look at social media is a little bit different. Because I still look at it as this fun new thing that kind of came out where it was, there's something fun. It was more like a novelty. And I still view it to a certain extent that way. Well,
because we were getting into it just about the time we were getting into high school.
Yeah.
And they do point out there's a big difference between somebody who gets access to social media, high school or college, or older, and somebody who has social media when they're developing in like middle school age.
And it was a different thing too when we got into it in high school. I mean, I look back if I want to have a good cringe fest, I look back at my memories from, goes back to 2009. And I really would post stuff like, just ate lunch. That's it. And I'm sitting there like, how did I think this was like good?
Worth sharing.
Yeah, but that was because the novelty of it at the time was that you could just be like, just went to Carlos O'Kelly's, pretty good.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I almost did a Trump thing there, but
pretty good.
Almost went to Carlos O'Kelly's.
Just went to Carlos O'Kelly's. It was pretty good.
Yeah. It's a little heavy metal Trump right there, but
the term Facebook addiction was becoming popular within about 2 or 3 years of social media becoming popular. And there was almost, from what I remember, because my mother's a counselor, so she reads she was reading these studies as it was coming out. The rate of depression among teenagers was immediately rising.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
Now, me personally, I've pretty much always hated social media. I'm in the minority. I started actually with MySpace in...
Sorry, did you say you hated social media minorities?
I'm in the minority of social media users where I just don't care really.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But yeah, I started with MySpace, and I was like, okay, this is cool, but it's a little invasive. And then Facebook came out, and it seemed like Facebook over the years just continued to take it to a new level of how much people want, how many aspects of a person's life they want to post on the internet. And that's where I got irritated. Where literally, I just went to Carlos O'Kelly's. Twitter comes out, and that's this whole string of idle thoughts that I don't care about.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say
Just
I haven't
came into a large sum of money.
Yeah,
I've had it for a while now.
Yeah.
And it's still sticky.
Well,
That's a tweet.
I have an account probably on every social media site, and I'm slowly like, I'll go like, oh, this is cool. Then I'm like, well, this is just BS. Like, I don't care about anything anyone is saying.
Like, I've been dialing it back more and more, where I use Facebook less and less, especially the last couple months. I realized a couple months ago, like, how much I'm on Facebook, and not like to do anything at all. But it's like the minute I get bored, like a
You
little
just
bit
pull it
bored,
out. Yeah.
you just pull it out and you're on it. And like, that's what I'm talking about, where it rewires you to where you feel like you need rewarded every couple minutes. And you really have to like get away from Facebook or get in the habit of using it once or twice a day. And to the point where if it wasn't that the majority of my friends were on Facebook that like live out of state and stuff, like I'm getting where I post less and less on Facebook, I would probably get rid of it and just have like Instagram to post on occasionally. Like I'm looking more and more for social media that takes less time. Like I completely quit using Snapchat. Because like for me, it was just like you had to be really invested. Like you had to like keep up with everything that was going on that day before it was gone, and chatting with 5 or 6 people at the same time continuously, and you're trying to keep your streaks up and stuff. And it's like you get real burnt out, and you get exhausted. And I do think it affects the way you live your normal life. Like it really makes it hard to just go and like just do something for 4 hours.
Yeah, it's even. I mean, you hear about. I've listened to a lot of things where vloggers on YouTube, they get to a point where they end up having a really weird. So I can't remember his full name, Jesse something, but he's like an OG YouTuber who used to do Prank vs. Prank, which was a channel he did with his wife, where they would just back and forth try to prank each other and film it. It was like really early YouTube. Back when pranks were still like acceptable to an extent, and he seems like a nice guy. But he was talking about they got to the point of vlogging, and I think they eventually got divorced or whatever. But he was talking about it's like, man, you have to consider everything in your life. Like, is this going to be interesting for the vlog? And I guess what I was thinking was you talking about Snapchat or Facebook. It's like you almost have to like you start thinking in terms of posts of what you're doing in life. Which I think is interesting. I mean, I accidentally did an experiment on this over the last couple months, which is probably a few months ago. Before a few months ago, I hardly ever posted on Facebook. Like maybe one post like a month or something like that, or less. And then I started going, well, a lot of times I have these funny little thoughts or whatever, and I can't get them out of my head. I like fill notebooks up with them. Like I'll just start posting them on Facebook. It'll be like a good get them out there. And it was good. And then, and this, I'm the type of person where, because of the way the Facebook algorithm works, like since I was never posting anything, no one's really seeing it. So if I posted something back then, it would get like a couple likes, or no one would even really see it. But over time, I really did start developing that little hit that you'd get from seeing more likes. It's like, oh, I got a heart on this one. Like, oh, I got a laughter one on that one. It's like, and then I realized, like, I mean, even right now, I still try to, I'll get to the point where I'm like, I need to post something today. I haven't made a little funny Facebook post for like 2 days. Oh man. Like people like, and then there is a satisfaction in seeing those likes. Like I've experienced that firsthand. And it really is messed up, because this is something I actually really hate Facebook. I've talked about it many times. It will make me actually depressed to get on Facebook and scroll through. But now I'm in an addictive way at like getting on there. And it's so sinister, because I get on there, make a post, and then I'll keep getting on there and even refreshing, waiting for that little red dot on the bell to be like, oh, someone else liked it. If I make a new post, I'll do that for like the next several hours after, which is embarrassing, but I'm just trying to be honest on the podcast for what we're talking about. It's like I do that. I'm like, I can't wait to see those new likes. And then if I, nothing happens, I refresh the page and nothing happens. Now I'm scrolling on Facebook again. So it gets you back onto Facebook, just even though I hate everything else on Facebook. It's pretty devious, like the way they've done it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is they're designed to keep you in a loop, to keep your eye time as invested as possible. And what I was thinking about was, I have this problem sometimes where I'll be hanging out with friends and I'll get too much in this mood where it's like I have to be telling jokes, I have to be getting laughs. And sometimes it's like for an hour while I'm hanging out with my friends, but sometimes it'll be like weeks. Every time I'm hanging out with my friends, the whole goal is to tell some really quippy jokes, get some really good laughs in. And you like devoid of social media, if you get into that, you start getting depressed anytime you're not able to make your friends laugh. And it's really hard to like slip back into a state of being just okay, just sitting and hanging out with your friends, just chilling, talking about whatever's just rolling through your mind at that time, and not feeling like you need any particular form of affirmation. And Facebook does the exact same thing, where it's like you were saying, you start thinking in terms of like posts, like, would this get a lot of attention? And you're like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And then you wait until you've got the perfect idea and you're like, oh yeah, because this will get a lot. Or you'll even get to the point where you're like, is this person liking, like, why didn't this person like my last 3 statuses, but they like this one?
Yeah.
Like, it really just gets you so like caught up in minute details that mean absolutely nothing.
Right.
But they end up becoming like everything to you.
And
I think that's what drives the depression of it so much. Because then once you're not getting that kick, it's like going through withdrawals.
Exactly.
And you just get super fucking depressed.
And you can't be satisfied. So then you're more and more like, where's the satisfaction coming from? And you're just not going to get it.
Yeah.
And I think, and the thing about it though is even with that happening with even us and our age, still, like I said, I still view, Facebook and these things as a bit of a novelty. It wouldn't crush me if like, hey, your Facebook got deleted. Or something, or like you can't ever use Snapchat. I'd be like, well, that's an inconvenience, but we still have some kind of vested, like our actual life is still where stuff is happening. But I feel like for younger teens and people who have had a cell phone in their hands since they were 8 years old, it must be 100 times worse, where they must feel like part of their life is online and their life is over if their Twitter account gets deleted or something.
Well, think about this. Think about how many times you've seen, like somebody you know personally or behind the scenes like videos from a YouTuber or something, and it's like, just imagine an all white apartment with a bunch of like posters or tapestries or something propped up like in the corners and stuff to make a nice set to film in.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all that's going on in that apartment, and that's pretty much the person's whole life.
Right.
They don't really get out and like do much else. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody who's on YouTube and Facebook or anything like that.
Like Indigo White.
But what I'm saying is, like, people in your own life who like their actual social life is very limited. Mm-hmm. Like I know people, I've been this person before where like I've spent like a year where I lived in this really bare apartment, not for any reason, except that the majority of my time was spent online.
Yeah.
And so my real life was pretty garish. But even though that's the case, if you were looking at my Instagram or my Facebook or anything like that during that time, looked like I was having a great time.
This guy's happening.
Yeah,
He's going
and I
to
had
Godzilla
some really
premieres.
like, ooh, and this stuff looks like, oh, and I always found a way to make my apartment look really stylish on social media. It's like once your mind's geared to that, you stop gearing to what's really going on in your life as much.
Yeah, you're playing to this thing that's not going to bring you satisfaction, but is going to feel really good at the moment when you get some likes. And you're not playing to this thing that's not very instantly gratifying, but is actually going to,
Going to lead to like
you end up
a
having
fulfilling friendship or
things that
good
can actually be
experiences.
satisfying.
Yeah. So where do we want to go from here? Do we want to go more into specifically like the issues Jonathan Haidt was talking about? Do we want to hit some of those, or keep going into like the philosophy of how we think this affects us.
Well, I mean, one of the things I think that would be fun, because I haven't put too much thought into it, so maybe this will be a disaster, but I think in conversation sometimes you can come up with great solutions, is what is really the solution? Because in the interview with Haidt, he's kind of basically just saying, well, our parents, parents need to monitor their kids. Like, don't even let them have social media. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys think of that. Like, I don't know. I'm not a parent. I don't know how that would be, but that must be so difficult when it's so ingrained in the culture. How would you tell your 14-year-old daughter you're not allowed to use any social media sites? Like, you would seem like and it makes me think there's so many things when I was a kid, when I used to hear about the parents who like, they wouldn't have a TV in their house. And I'm like, I feel so bad for that kid. Like,
I still feel bad for that
I
kid.
still do too. But the point is, I'm like, man, would I just be the modern day version of that if I was a dad that was like, yeah, you can't use social media until you're 16 or something? You would seem like a crazy nut house strict parent.
Maybe. But here's the difference. There's the parent who is terrified of movies and TV and how it affects your brain, and you shouldn't see these things, and you shouldn't play video games because they're violent, and doesn't really know anything and doesn't allow their kids to play or do anything.
Yeah.
That's one parent. Then there's the parent who's watched everything and played everything and gets how it's affected him and is like, yeah, you can watch this, but not that. And like, look, buddy, I know you want to play video games for 8 hours today, but you've played 3 hours. You got to go out and do something. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I'm pointing out is, what's best is if you know and understand the problems, then you're going to address them. You're going to be able to address them much better with your kids. And so what I would say is, you've got to figure out how social media affects you before you can even start trying to, like, I don't know if there's any parents listening. I don't know what our demographics really are, but for you and me, we have the advantage of we get to figure out how we're going to cope with social media before we have kids. Mm-hmm. But if you are a parent, like, I think the same problem applies as if you don't understand social media and how it affects you and how it makes, like, parents who are on social media all the time can end up being real assholes, like real snippy with their kids.
Yeah.
They have no patience with their kids, no patience when their kids make mistakes, and that kind of stuff. What I would say is social media, it's kind of like weed. I would argue, from my stance, there's nothing inherently wrong with smoking some pot, but you see people who are constantly smoking pot, and that's the only way that they can get to a place where they're happy or content. Like, they're like they 2-3 times a day minimum, and it's like just completely driving them. And you gotta like, whatever is driving you like that, you got to be able to step back and look at, how is this affecting me? How is this affecting my ability to actually enjoy life outside of this thing? So I don't know. I don't know if I have a solution, but I think for me, it's been trying to figure out more and more. I've been getting more and more invested in my real life.
Yeah.
And putting less and less, very intentionally. It's not just like, oh, I'm more interested in my real life. No, you really have to intentionally cut off and be like, okay, this is driving me bananas. I'm going to limit myself to checking it in the morning, when I get off work, and before I go to bed, and that's it, or something.
See, I think I kind of got an advantage just on a personality level, because it's just never appealed to me. But personally, I don't, I almost agree with him. Just about anybody under about the age of 16 is going to be negatively affected. It's just, especially if you're raised from birth, having the whole world critique your every move in life.
Yeah.
As you're growing up, you're posting everything online. I have a cousin who she started, she was raised in social media. She had a Facebook when she was like 7 or 8 years old.
Jeez.
And I've just kind of watched her kind of almost degrade over time as she's, it's just this whole vibe that you get where people are just wired and they're staring at their phone, they're scrolling like just mindlessly for hours on end. And it makes me feel like the old man that's like, get out and do something constructive.
Yeah.
Because I've just, and then our generation's no different. My parents' generation gets locked in it.
Yeah, that's a weird thing, seeing
it's
older
this
people
odd,
do it.
Yeah, it's not. So to me, it doesn't look like a generation-based trend. It looks like something that is completely designed to make you addicted.
I think the
Absolutely.
trend is universal. The effects, it seems to affect teens worse. But I do think the trend is obviously universal.
I mean, like having a drug while your brain is developing at a young age, I think the exact same thing happens. It affects your ability to develop healthy.
And one thing that scares me is he was talking about beauty standards on social media. Let's look Instagram. I've noticed everybody's trying to look like these Instagram models now, and it's just that's something.
White.
It used to be, you'd see something on TV or you'd see something in a magazine. Now it's you look at your phone and you've got 60 women that you think, if you're female, that you think are hotter than you, and you're trying to.
And your friends. I mean, think about that too. You have to compare. You're thinking about your life and what you're actually doing in your life, and comparing it to these. That analogy you're talking about with the apartment, with the corner of the room with a bunch of posters. It looks like there's a lot going on in that corner, and that's all you see of your friends. So now you're dealing with it's even worse, because if you see 10 years ago, you see some star doing some, that's all glamour, glitz and glamour, and doing all this crazy stuff. You'd be like, well, it is a star, though. That's not me. But then you see your friend who's in the same class as you, and their life looks amazing. It's like, wow, they're looking at a castle in England or something. That's amazing. And it's like, you're only seeing the best part of their life, and you're comparing your whole shitty life to that moment. So it is the standard, and the comparison of the standards is a lot worse and more compelling.
How many people are going to post a video on Facebook of them cleaning up dog crap in their yard? I guess now maybe.
Take videos of that and send it to versetheworldpod@gmail.com. We'd love to showcase that.
Unless they're mad at their neighbor.
A compilation of you cleaning
and it's
your dog
passive
shit
aggressive.
Up. You don't even need a dog.
They're not going to, it's like, oh, well, it's like, I'm just going to sit at home and watch TV, and which some people are conceited enough to think that you care. I've seen that.
I care about what?
That the fact that the person's sitting and watching TV.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look how amazing these sweats are.
Like,
I'm going to cram a bunch of potato chips in my fat face, and I'm going to watch.
Now you're just personally ranting.
The new episode of. I'm going to go watch the new episode of Game of Thrones.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's the thing with social media. One thing I've tried to do more and more is document my real life a little bit, rather than trying to hype myself up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I just did this really crazy cool thing. Like, that's the way I used to use it. And in the last couple of months, it's like, oh, I'm out hanging out with my friend. I'm not taking a glam shot. I'm taking a shot of him over there looking like a dumbass. And I'm like, it's fun getting coffee with your butt at 3 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of stuff. Two things happen. One, you look stupid. But you only look stupid because you're not playing the game. Two, then you realize how trivial posting it is.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I could just enjoy this.
Right. Yeah, that is really the thing.
But I mean, I think it's also a bigger problem in metropolitan areas. This is an assumption. I'm not really sure. But when I hear a lot of people talking from LA and stuff about these issues, they'll say things like, and it's kind of true here, but not to the same extent, of if we're on a date, like a dinner date, and we're at a restaurant, and you get up and go to the bathroom, I get on my phone and start swiping through social media. And if I didn't do that, and I just sat there alone and looked around smiling, I would look like an absolute psychopath. I don't think that's quite as true. I intentionally try to not pull out my phone when if I'm eating dinner with one family member or something and they leave, I try to remind myself, you don't have to look like you're busy doing something every time you're out in public. You can't just be a dumbass who's just standing there at the street corner waiting for their friend to come back and just looking around at the buildings trying to find some way to entertain himself.
Yeah.
But you have to think about the level of effect that has, that you feel awkward doing that. You feel like you should get the most normal thing to do is to get your phone out and start scrolling just to alleviate the tension.
And that's where the social pressure, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about, of it is so high for every generation. obviously the teenagers. I mean, imagine being the 14-year-old in 9th grade that isn't on social media. Which I think you might end up feeling a little elevated. But the thing about that is, what if you're trying to live the healthy lifestyle and everyone around you isn't? You must feel like you're walking around with zombies.
But like you're the only vegan.
Yeah. But I was gonna say with you were talking about your cousin,
Yeah.
or whatever, on these young age, and they're obsessed with the phone. We've all talked about this separately, but I think it's worth noting on the podcast of like, I don't know. Well, anyway, we've been on dates with younger girls.
Okay.
Hey.
Don't say that with hesitancy.
Yeah. No,
Girls younger than us.
Younger than us. Not
like a couple years
not
younger
16-year-olds, just a couple years younger. And there is a huge difference in that. Okay.
I'm going to say between 18 and 21.
What?
Between 18 and 21.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for coming in and factually saving us.
Thank you. Oh, thank God, Evan. This is going to be doctored. But at least I don't call them younglings like Ty. Anyway.
Oh, God.
Yeah, what a creep. So, no, but I've been on dates with
we call Ty out every episode of the show.
I know, no one knows who he is.
We need to bring him on.
We'll have to have him on, yeah.
People will instantly get it.
It'll just be Ty versus the world, and he has to face the music of all the crap we've accused him of. No, but even just that, being out at dinner with someone, like I went on a date at a coffee shop with a girl, and at first she was like trying to show me an Instagram picture. First, like, oh, cool, that's fine. Lean over the table, you show the thing, whatever. And then I'm not joking. After a couple minutes, it was just she's just on Instagram now. And I make it a note as a person where maybe not as far as you where, okay, the person leaves and now I instantly get on my phone. It's like I do that, but I do make it a note if I'm out eating with someone, especially if it's one-on-one, I don't pull up my phone. Like maybe if you get a text or something.
I actually think that's kind of rude.
I think so too. And so I was just doing this and I was on this date and that happens where you have the girl like pretty soon she's just scrolling through Instagram and I'm just sitting there in a coffee shop kind of looking around. And in that moment, I felt like, oh, I'm going to date people my age because this is not cool. Like, this is so, I felt old and like weird, like all of a sudden in that moment. But actually, that's like so that's like something that actually happens that I think is.
Yeah. Sometimes
awesome.
when I go on a date, if the girl never pulls her phone out, like while we're talking and like holds a conversation, that's all the more that she has to do for me to be like, oh wow, this is a very mature, interesting individual.
And it's not just dates either. Like that was an example, but people your age. I mean, this is a pet peeve of mine. Is you're out with a group of people, and pretty soon someone starts sharing memes, and now you're just sitting at a table while everyone's passing phones showing memes over and over again.
I'm sorry.
You have done it. But
that is always me. Every
well,
event.
I don't know if it's you every time, but I don't even think there's a problem with showing a meme or two. But there are situations where if you try to adhere to that rule, where you're just sitting there and then you just feel really awkward because it's like, okay, everyone's sharing memes and not just memes, but just when there's always those silent moments like you're talking about where everyone's like, oh, there's one moment here where no one's talking and now like we're conditioned to just pull our phones up to avoid awkwardness, which there's a benefit to that. I mean, it's pretty nice that if you're talking to someone and the conversation goes weird or you're in an awkward moment that you can pull up your phone. It's a cool little scapegoat.
But that's the thing. It's a scapegoat because even with one of your like best friends or best relationships or whatever, you're gonna have those awkward moments where somebody says something and you have an awkward like ooh, and then like you sit there for a second. It's like there's nothing left to say. Having that scapegoat means that you never build up the skills to know how to dig out of a situation like that. Yeah, what do you do?
We were actually doing that with flip phones though. That was before the smartphone.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like we had anything to be checking on our fucking flip phones. Oh, I'm just going to pretend I got a message.
People were, you'd start texting.
Pretend to text,
that was very common.
Yeah.
You got people ignoring you and pretending to text a lot.
Well, let's also...
There's also the possibility that we're three very uninteresting human beings.
Yeah. Let's just think about, though, that's a huge symptom of anxiety when you're just constantly... Actually, social anxiety. you're putting that defense up, and you're not developing new social skills.
Right, but that is exactly what this book is about. The whole book explores it's called Coddling of the American Mind, but I think the tagline is something like how a generation of good intentions has set
and bad ideas
has set a generation up for failure. And the whole thing is mostly it's trying to get down to what the root causes of why has depression and anxiety and social anxiety specifically increased so much in this most recent generation that's in college now. So Gen Z is in college now. They, like, if you count me, like, I should start Gen Z about 2 years after we started college is when I really started noticing the, like, everybody's joking about being depressed and killing themselves at every minor inconvenience, which, don't get me wrong, is funny as all get out. It's one of my favorite forms of comedy. But that used to be you had one friend like that.
Yeah, that was my joke.
I was going to say, that was Evan.
And now it's everybody is that. It's weird when you can be like, well, why don't you fucking go kill yourself as a joke, and now everybody's like, oh yeah, you're right, I should just fucking go do it now, and like all starts laughing. It's weird that everybody is that depressed.
It's weird when you have 8 people in a room and they're all encouraging each other to kill themselves.
It is. But this book looks at how all of these things have affected us because anxiety and fear are not something that you get rid of. Like you stop having fear or you stop having anxiety. You learn coping methods for how you deal with the world, how you deal with anxious situations. And when you have all these shortcuts to not have to deal with awkward social encounters, what you end up with is a whole generation of people who have social anxiety and don't know how to handle these things.
Yeah, I didn't think about that up until this conversation, is how much the phone even has set us up for being having horrible social skills. And seeing that where someone's on their phone and you're, especially on a one-on-one situation, you're trying to talk to someone, they're just scrolling through their phone. It's like, how is that? You don't see that as rude, but it's like, maybe they don't. That's just part of their thing.
Yeah,
and I do
just what
think,
they're
like,
used to.
I mean, like I was talking about, there's so much social pressure though for those things. Like you said, maybe to be in a restaurant, but even on a grander scale, you have, now it's a thing where, and you see posts like this on Facebook all the time from girls, but it's like, basically the thing is it'll be shared posts all the time, but the essential idea is like, your man don't care about you if he's not posting about you on Facebook. And I think that's awful.
Absolutely.
That pisses me off.
I think that's awful. I think that's terrible.
I have not
that's
once posted about my man on Facebook.
Yeah, apparently. Who is this guy? No.
No, that logic actually hurt a
is gay.
relationship I was in
Yeah.
at one point.
Sure. I've been in the same situation.
Same.
And it's to have that. Look, I get the mentality of it.
Hashtag me too.
I get the mentality of it because it's like, well, look, you want being proud of who you're with or showcasing your girlfriend, being proud of that. There's nothing wrong with that. But having
yeah,
that,
and especially when you feel that, when you're like, God, I'm fucking happy this person's with me, and like they bring a lot to my life, and then you post about it. That's a great thing, but it shouldn't be like you haven't posted about me in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's a requirement now. It's like I
haven't posted anything but memes in 3 weeks.
It's not a damn dog show.
You have to like sign it on your prenups
I'm trying to show you
before you
off.
get married.
Like, yeah, you bring her out, like show her to the judges. You know, it's like.
Plus, I get sick and tired of the fact that I get more likes when I post about my girlfriend than when I post about myself.
That's it. That's
like,
really what
where
it
did all
comes
these
down to.
people come from? I haven't seen you in 8 years. Old youth pastor, why are you like? You don't even know this girl. It's
like, God damn, he did it. This son of a bitch did it. But it really is like, we're joking around, but like legitimate relationship issues I've had in the past because of that. And the thing is, when you're like I said, I post a little bit more now, which is always just jokes. That's all I do on Facebook. But someone like Evan,
because you're posting about your life.
Oh. But the thing is, Evan, who doesn't ever use social media, you get a girlfriend and she's like, how come you don't post about me? It's like, I don't post about anything. And the fact that social pressure, and that, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, that comes from the whole same thing they're doing when they're posting pictures of themselves on Instagram. It's a validation thing. But now it's a requirement. You got to do it too.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to complain about relationships. I'm just saying how it affects relationships even now, the social media thing.
Well, and like with Facebook, I do 2-3 posts a year tops. You know, I have the one on my birthday, and that's because I do feel obligated because everybody's wishing me happy birthday.
Yeah, you got to say thanks.
But sometimes you get to the point where, and this actually happened to me. I was getting on Facebook just to like my girlfriend's posts. That was the only reason.
Man,
I didn't
that's
do
sad,
anything
yeah.
else. I just liked her posts, and I would
Yeah, that's
like every day. I got to go find all 20 things that she.
the other thing is you were just talking about how you made a Facebook post recently where you basically said like everything's going all right, guys. Like I'm alive. Like if you get off of social, like if you delete, I've had people get like friends who act irritated if I say I deleted my Facebook. And it's like, or something like that. Like I deactivated my Facebook for a few months one time.
At first it strikes you as like a pretentious thing. Like
That,
it kind of strikes you like veganism. Like, oh, you deleted your social media. We'll see you back in 3 weeks.
But yeah, there's that. But I mean, there's the aspect of it where it's like, how come you're not on this thing? Like how, like everyone uses this. How come you're not on
Everybody
it?
uses Fortnite, but I'm not gay.
How come I can't tag you in a post? And it's like, yeah, it's like that's an irritating part of it too.
But that's the thing. Sexy Matt, he's deleted his social media a couple of times, and I think right now he's been off Facebook for like 3 months.
Nice.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Absolutely jealous.
Yeah. But he probably gets shit for that from people. It's like
mostly like
family members and stuff. Yeah, there's a definite pull there about, and it really is becoming like an all-encompassing thing.
Well, that's the thing with me. Most people don't get terrified when they don't see any posts from me because it's so infrequent. But every once in a while, like my most recent post, I made an exception because I hadn't talked to hardly anybody for like 3 weeks, and I was getting a bunch of phone calls like, well, everybody else is going to see it, so I just, so for me it's really just a way to get a message out to everybody, which is, I always felt social media was just for communication, as opposed to, I guess, being a pageant to show your life off to everyone. I feel like that's really what it's become, is a contest or a pageant.
Yeah. And like I said, I used to think about that in like a detestable way. Like, people are doing this. It's so sick and so stupid. And it's like, now I just kind of feel bad because like, well, now I understand how these companies are tapping into us on a biological level and getting us to invest time on their sites. Although I did hear recently that Twitter and Instagram, because I think Twitter owns Instagram or whatever, that they're actually going to remove likes. Not that they'll necessarily remove it, but
they're
going
to a special under like 12 profile thing where you can't get likes.
Yeah,
if you're under a certain age, because they're trying to combat the addictive nature of social media for kids.
And
I think.
Well, there's that, but there's also, I know on Instagram for sure they're trying to move it to an area where the posts you see and posts that are popular don't have as much to do with how many likes there are, and they're trying to find a different way to make the algorithm so that it's not so like focused. If you're a celebrity, it's not all about you trying to get likes. I don't know how that's going to go down, but it is kind of cool at least that they're looking at that. I mean, which seems counterintuitive. I know Facebook would never do that. I think people are focused a lot on Twitter right now because of the ban stuff, which I think is ridiculous, and the ideology stuff is ridiculous.
Fuck Twitter.
But I do think Facebook is the most sinister when it comes to really trying to reel people in with what they're doing.
Yeah, it's the same psychology behind games like Candy Crush. I mean, there's billions going into research to specifically trigger the part of your brain that makes you want to continue using these services.
Yeah. Well, I just realized we've gone for about an hour, and we might start chasing our tails if we keep going now. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. I guess the whole point was just to. I'd like to, if anyone's listening, I know maybe we have some more people listening these days. We really would appreciate feedback and comments, like or emails or anything like that. We really want to start, kind of bringing other people's voices onto the podcast. And so we'd love to see. You can shoot us an email at versetheworldpod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, and
on Instagram at versetheworldpod, Facebook Verse the World.
Yeah, so go on. You send us a message. Maybe you could comment on Facebook. Send us an email. Tell us what's your what.
We just did a whole episode.
I know the irony of it. Well, this is the the point here being for communication purposes. Obviously,
we really need some likes.
Yeah. Please give us some
show.
likes. No, but we just want to hear what other people think. We don't want to always be circle jerking. So if you have comments on like how does social media affect you, shoot us an email. Might be the best way to do it, honestly. And we'd love to read some emails on the podcast, see what people think. And you can even say like F you, Caleb. I'm so glad you got sick.
Who the fuck is Caleb?
F you, Danny. And who cares what your name is at this point?
Danny Fenton.
No.
Well,
I'm sorry
okay.
for dead naming you though, for real.
No, that's okay.
For real, man. Sorry about that.
If it's only because we're close friends that I'll allow it. If it had been anyone else, I would have sued. But we did kind of hard cut in that. Do we want to like do final thoughts or anything?
Yeah, that's true. We can wrap it up. About final thoughts. I can go first, I guess. I don't have any great points to make about it because it's more of a thing that I'm just kind of like, oh, this is actually scaring me. And I really am usually a person that's like, people make big deals about this kind of stuff all the time. But seeing the evidence, like seeing how it's actually affected people, realizing how it's affected me in my own life and people around me, I'm just worried about how obviously social media and this kind of technology and smartphones is just going to be part of our lives now. But how do we go about like integrating it? I don't know. It's really made me scared about the idea of parenting more, one of those big fears now. Cause like, man, how do you deal with that? Cause now I feel like I am going to be one of those weird, strict parents. It's like, you're not allowed to have your phone after this time and you can't get on social media till you're this age. So it's made me really contemplate a lot of things. But I guess all I can do is in my life is similar to what you were talking about, Danny, of like focusing on, how can I put the phone down sometimes and appreciate my actual real life? And after a while, I think that maybe that could start a trend. And that's maybe the best way I can look at it. What do you think, Evan?
Well, you covered most of the psychology. I want to say this. If you're one of those people that social media just doesn't really resonate with you, don't go with the peer pressure and force yourself to post and keep up with everything, because it's not as pretentious as you may think you come off to people. I think there's a lot more people like me out there that are kind of frustrated with it. So yeah, if you want to turn it off and post once or twice a year, go for it.
I guess what I would say is I actually think the statistics are pretty clear of how access to social media during your developmental years and continued use greatly increases your depression and your anxiety. And we're seeing that in society right now, where there's a lot more people being diagnosed with depression and anxiety, which is a really sad thing. And I think we're seeing how these things are going to get more and more integrated into our life, and talking about like how do you integrate successfully and prevent that. For me, I'm actually kind of curious whether the strong people of our generation, the influential leaders and stuff, will end up being the people who kind of beat social media, like found a way out of it. Because I kind of see it like a new opioid crisis where everybody's got to do it, and it's what's giving their life fulfillment. Really weirdly, where it's like everybody's watching everybody perform all the time, constantly. But if you could break away from it and define what a meaningful life looks like for you, I think that's the best way out.
Fair enough. And I guess, this episode's so disjointed because I'm not used to being the one to carry the episodes, but
Sorry.
No, it's fine. But I just feel bad, because I just remembered, closing segments. We're going to change it up a little bit this week.
Oh yeah.
I guess part of it was we usually do catching up with Matt and Danny at the end of the episodes.
I think we changed it to what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing or whatever. And it's sort of the thing is a lot of times I'm not doing anything. So so I'm like, this is going to get more and more embarrassing each week of me not doing anything. And I thought it'd be fun. One thing lately that has been a real hobby of mine is I watch films a lot, but recently I started just catching up on critically acclaimed films that I never watched. And so me and Danny might just be doing like slightly different ways we finish out the episode, but
What are we calling this segment? The Matt segment?
Working title, so whatever, maybe we'll come up with something. Maybe fans could come up with something. I was just going to call it Matt watches the shit that everyone else already watched 10 years ago.
I love it.
I watched No Country for Old Men, which came out in like 2008, I think. And I watched this a few weeks ago, and I just realized how dumb this segment really is, because most people will either not know the film if they didn't watch it back then, or will know it and be like, yeah, dude. But
that's what makes this segment great.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't know what I was getting into. I knew a little bit about the movie. Like all you see is this like Hispanic guy with the weird bob haircut, and he's killing people with it's essentially the thing they kill cows with. I don't know what they're called. It's like an he's got like a CO2 tank, and he just puts, there's like a metal rod at the end, and he just kills people with it. That's all I knew about the movie, was I'm like, oh, there's some weird guy killing people in a weird way. So I'm like, okay, it'll be interesting just because that seems, violent, and I'll be into that. Watched the movie, ended up having a very profound experience watching it. And it almost changed. It actually probably affected me in a filmmaking extent, because I guess it doesn't matter if I spoil things, because it's a 10-year-old movie.
Who cares?
The bad guy wins in the movie, basically, and though it literally ends. So the whole movie is you have what's his name who played Thanos?
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin plays the main character, and the whole time you're like rooting for him. He basically ends up stumbling upon some cash and just trying to make it out. Him and his girlfriend, like, hey, we got this free cash. Ends up belonging to this gangster, basically, who's another guy whose name I don't even know if I could pronounce, but that actor. Do you know?
I haven't watched this movie.
He's the guy from Mother.
Oh,
I feel like you know his name.
Bad guy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
It's not Benicio del Toro.
No, it's not. He kind of looks like him. Anyway, I can't remember his name, but he does a phenomenal performance. But the thing about it is, the movie, it really racial. The movie ends up ending in this way where it's like, okay, Josh Brolin ends up getting what's coming to him. He doesn't escape. The girlfriend ends up. You think, oh well, she ends up having this great monologue where she's playing. Then she dies too. And then the guy, as he's escaping, gets hit by a car in a car wreck. And you're like, oh, it caught up to him. This crazy psychopath finally died. Survives the car crash. He's like, and then he just kind of gets up and walks away. And he ends up surviving. And he makes a quick sling out of like a kid's t-shirt. And then you're like, the movie pretty much ends with every bad thing happening that you thought might happen in the movie. But somehow, this is the thing, is that you used to think, okay, you can't do that in a movie. Like, you just can't do that. But that was almost the point of the movie, is that in real life, I guess things don't always work out the way you hope. It's really a depressing movie. Evan, you'd love it. You've seen it? Have you seen it?
I haven't. Country for Old Men? It sounds like a really depressing comedy.
It's not funny at all. It's just depressing. No, it's very tense and very cool. But so anyway, I should have watched this movie 10 years ago. It deserves all the nominations it got. It's a Coen Brothers movie. The characters are fantastic, and it made me rethink what you can maybe do with a movie. Not that I always thought, oh, you always have to have the good thing happen at the end, but there's not a silver lining in the movie. There's just not. It's really like the bad guy wins. And I just thought it was really bold that they did that. So anyway, I'd give it like a 5 out of 10.
What? A 5 out of 10?
No, I'm joking. I would give it honestly, and I don't even like more serious drama like Oscar type movies. I would give it like a 9 out of 10.
Whoa.
Which is, I would say, high praise for me because of the
Yeah.
type of genre. I don't even usually like those types of movies.
Yeah.
But maybe I had a profound experience that other people didn't have. And I also spoiled the whole movie for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Me?
And like I said, anyone who has seen it will be like, yeah, dude, we already saw that 10 years ago. And that's the beauty of the
I
segment.
love this segment. And now we're going to start our other new segment. Caleb jerks himself off. So I finished up school, and I'm trying to get it done quick because I have a bunch of new books coming in. I'm about over halfway through the Gulag Archipelago, and I was talking to you about it today, but I'll just quickly for the audience. This book is fucking hard to read. It talks about like what really happened, and I've read a lot of. I may have talked about this already on the show a couple of times, but I've read a lot of books about what happened in Nazi concentration camps. Pretty disturbing stuff. The Gulag Archipelago, what happened in the Gulag in Soviet Russia, like, oh my God, it's horrific. It's worse than anything I've ever read about hell. Like, I was just reading today, it was talking about different diseases that your friends could die from while you're in the Gulag. And one of the ones it described was talking about like you would know your friend was dying of starvation and he wouldn't have much longer when he would start breaking out in black and blue bumps everywhere, like head to toe, scrotum, everything. And they basically be like giant pimples. And he was like it would be unbelievably painful if anything bumped into him. And then after so long, they'd come to a head and pop. And a big snake of pus would shoot out, and that was your body decomposing as you were still alive. And it's just, the book messed me up a couple different ways. It's really, really dark, but it's really hit me in a really profound way, really making me think about like, it's kind of irrelevant to believe in hell or believe in the devil. Like I kind of made that point with my play because man is capable of so much worse, like horrendous evil and malicious shit that it's like, how could you come up with something like worse for hell to be than like the horrors that man's capable of? But anyways, pretty good book. I'd highly recommend it. Hopefully I'll be finished up with it soon, and then I ordered the book Last Temptation of Christ that the film was based off of, because I guess the original author of the book is like some famous psychologist or something. I think he wrote it in the 60s or earlier, but he wrote a series of like 3 books that are about historical figures where he tried to like figure out their psychology and write like these famous historical figures from a very human perspective. And Christ was actually the last one he did, and that was the only controversial one. Before that, all the other books were accepted with high praise. So I wanted to pick up the book and check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm up to.
Well, hope you had a great listening experience to another episode. Once again, sorry, Caleb's sick, and
Well, actually, I am a little sick, but the reason my voice is so squeaky is when we were fighting off all of the villagers who were attacking us yesterday, I got hit right in the throat with the butt of a gun. But luckily, Evan dragged me away. That was by that
child.
Yeah, that 9-year-old. I didn't think he had that much muscle mass on his body.
Seeing you choke him out, I mean, I guess war's war. So,
like I said, hell doesn't terrify me anymore.
Tell us what you think. Contact us on all the social media that we just demonized for an hour. And
we didn't demonize Gmail. Hit us up at Gmail.
The one last. So
write us a wordy essay.
You have something to say, Evan?
I think I might go and plug myself, but
Well, yeah, I was gonna get to that.
okay.
But yeah, go ahead. What's going on in your life, Evan?
Oh, well, last time I was on, I think I discussed a certain venture. I have a coaching business that's launching. By the time this comes out, it should already be up and running.
What is it called?
It's called Reida Mindfulness. REIDA. Mindfulness. So I'm not going to spell it. If you can't spell mindfulness, my service probably isn't right for you. But no, you'll be able to find me on Facebook if you just search what I just told you. Or if you want to email me, go to radacoaching@yahoo.com. Contact me directly, and if I get enough questions, I might even come on the show and read them here. So
I can think of at least one person who's probably going to contact you.
I don't know. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, thanks for coming on the show, Evan.
It's great having you here.
And if anyone new is listening, maybe you saw about us in the McPherson Sentinel local paper.
We're just
Is that
jerking
okay?
ourselves off all day.
No, but I just mean we were in the paper, so maybe
We
if
were.
anyone's listening, thanks for reading that article. Thanks to Patricia for writing about us.
You're great, Patricia.
And man, it's even hard to end an episode. How do
I usually do it?
we usually joke around and then I edit it out.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
So anyway.
Okay. How the fuck?